special guest today, Jovi. I'm super excited. Welcome, Dr. Jones. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes, thank
Good morning.
you,
Welcome,
both of
welcome.
you.
Yes, thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself just to start off.
Yeah. So my name is Yvonne Jones. I have been a licensed school counselor for over 20 years. Been able to work in different settings in the school. So from middle school all the way up to the high school setting. Currently, I'm working within a public charter school specializing in post-secondary readiness and preparing students for after school life. And so we actually follow our alumni even beyond the graduation stage. And so some of those areas that we're looking at to say, how are they doing, are related to their academic fit, their social emotional fit, and their financial fit to see how they're doing. And so just being able to bring those elements into a process of what are you doing in life and how are you doing in life has almost taken my experience as a school counselor from this level to a greater level because it's just deepening our support for students beyond academics.
One question I'd like to ask on that, we interviewed someone recently who explained his trajectory in landing in the field of mental health. What did that look like for you? At what point did you know, I think this is what I want to do? Was it modeled for you? Did you have someone that you looked up to and you said, this person has inspired me to do that? And secondary to that question, what did that look like as far as studies? Because you said you're a licensed mental health or school counselor. So if there's hours that you have to meet, and the reason we ask that question is we want to we understand that our youth that are coming up that may be inclined to go in that direction are probably 8 to 10 years away from finishing. And sometimes that journey can get a little daunting and you get discouraged. So what would you have to say or explain how you got from point A to point B?
I would say, as far as my journey getting to becoming a school counselor, it was one of those things that when I think back to what I do right now, I wish I would have had a team like I'm working with or a team of school counselor professionals who really took time to step back and think about fit and think about the best place for me post high school. Because when I left high school, I actually had an amazing school counselor, but really her experience in supporting me academically, for my next steps was kind of a little limited. And so when I was saying I want to do this or do that, she was just like, here, go to this school. Like that was the extent of her support. I love her to pieces, but when I think about, we didn't have any conversations around, is this a good fit for me? Is this location a good fit for me? Is this going to be a good financial fit for me? But in the end, because of the relationship, because of the rapport, because of how I knew she was there for me when I got stuck in college, my junior year, I actually called my high school counselor and I asked her some advice around, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to go to, and I don't know what my next step should be. And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to work with people. I want to work with people in schools like you helped me. She was just like, have you thought about being a school counselor? And for me, it was like one of those moments like, be like Miss Bird? Absolutely. Like that was what I was trying to get to. Like I wanted something similar to what I had. And so I went and I looked through programs and it actually opened up that the university that I was at had a school counseling program. So I stayed there for 6 years. So in that timing wise, if you're looking into going into a profession, you do have to do your 4 years and then you do another 2 years to get a master's degree. And I specialized in school settings. And so with that, when you know you're going to work as a mental health support in the school setting, you also have to understand the limitations of that. And I think someone, especially a young person thinking, oh, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do counseling and therapy and all of that in school, you won't do that as a school counselor. Like my primary role is to eliminate barriers to the academic support of students. Those barriers could be social, emotional, mental health. But oftentimes, if they're very extreme mental health that right now a lot of our students are dealing with, those are going to get referred out. the school counselor will not be able to meet with your student and do individual counseling and therapy because those are limitations within the scope of the role of a professional school counselor. So within that, professionalizing your license, you do have a test that you take at the end of your master's program. So again, it prepares you to be licensed pre-K through 12 in school settings, but it doesn't prepare you, say, to be a mental health therapist. It doesn't prepare you to, say, be um, a psychiatrist who may have to administer medication. It's not that role. It's really limited to the school setting. It's limited to saying, hey, this student is struggling in the classroom. Let's try to figure out what the barriers are. Is it academic? Is it mental health? Is it some other family issue? And then support that student in kind of a brief counseling support service space, and then refer out for those larger mental health issues that our students are dealing with today.
And I think that's important also for parents to know, because many parents I've heard, I've been involved in youth ministry for probably over 20, 25 years in different capacities. And I know when I've run into parents in the community, or we have community events that surround mental health, they'll often say, well, the school counselor isn't doing their job. So I think that word counselor, we don't see it as an academic, because to me, when I hear that word, I think academic counselor. I just talked to one of my students last night during our youth meeting, and I was like, you need to go back. She's wanting to go to a specific school. I said, get the information for the school, see what the admittance requirements are, and then go speak to your counselor at school and have them guide you through that. So when I think of counseling, I think on the academic side. But when you have problems with like the mental health component of it, and then parents are lacking insurance, they're lacking time because they're working, so I don't have time to take you to counseling. I think that's where the mix-up comes in, and they say, well, the school has a counselor, go see the counselor. So what I'm hearing you say is you may be able to go see that counselor.
Yeah.
The counselor may identify you're absolutely right, something's going on, but the counselor's role is not to administer the mental health professional support that student may be needed. Their job is to really refer out to find that connection for them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You might have some school counseling spaces where, say for an instance, at the elementary school level, where you have school counselors who will come in to the classroom and do what's like tier 1 school counseling guidance lessons. Those could be in the realm of social emotional. It might be like emotional regulation, anger management, um, uh, issues such as friendship, relationships. They might come in and do a presentation for the entire first grade classroom. They might come in and do a presentation on bullying, how to deal with bullying for the entire third grade classroom. Your school counselor is definitely a person who wants to come and provide services on a larger basis to multiple students so that all students are getting social emotional support, but that individualized counseling, mental health support that really requires treatment planning. It requires a team of people. Your school counselor, I will call a local mental health therapist that I know has seen my student, and to ensure that what I'm providing for the student doesn't interfere with their doing with that student, or to see how can we work together through a release of information to really try to provide the best services for that student when they are in our building every day. And so there is a relationship that we hold, but also a very fine line around that's firm, that says, I am not going to be able to meet with your student individually. Now, say it in the case of the fact that my school counselor, she was a Black woman who I was able to go to from a space of, I'm also trying to figure out what I want to do, but I'm also coming to you because I trust you. You look like me. You have a similar background as me. And I know a lot of students don't have that. So for families, especially within Black communities that go into a school and you see a Black school counselor, I mean, it's like, oh, well, go see the counselor, because it's almost like a point of connection to say, oh, if my student needs help, I want to at least go see this person to see if they could help support. And it's almost like a beacon of light in some ways in communities where you see someone that is in roles of helping and support in school settings, because you often don't always have that. And so, especially as a young person, like a young person of color who might be interested in mental health, in education, I would be like, please do it, because I believe at times within our communities, we don't get help, we don't seek help, and we don't have access to the help that we need. So, being able to be that first line to say something's going on with your student, and being able to have a trusted referral to say, hey, I see your student every day, and let's make a connection with this local agency, or let's make a connection here. That might be for some families the first time that they even open themselves up to mental health support beyond like a school setting, and oftentimes in Black communities, like a church setting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you want to share? We have some statistics.
Yeah. So, some of the data that I found when we were kind of working on this episode, according to the Indiana.gov mental health workforce study, there are approximately 3,002 African American residents for every one African American mental health professional in Indiana. And that was a 2015 statistic. As of recent data, which is 2023 from the American Psychological Association, or the APA, only about 4% of psychologists in the US are Black, 2% of psychiatrists, 22% of social workers, 7% marriage and family counselors, and 11% of professional counselors are Black.
Mm.
To me, that I don't I didn't realize that there was such a disparity between that.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that those numbers are polarizing.
yeah,
Well, and I think you hit on this when really until you said it, I hadn't really thought about it. If because I don't think we'll ever eradicate racism. It's just a systemic issue, and we have it, and it exists. And we have those racial issues that are embedded in us that, if not challenged, we don't even realize they're there
yeah,
until they come
yeah.
knocking on the door.
Mhm.
So, as a Black family with a child that may be experiencing some issues, but the counselor at the school is white,
Mm,
and now I get a call from a white counselor that
mm,
says, your kid needs help.
mm.
The counselor may be spot on,
Spot on.
but it may not be received because it's coming from a white or a non-Black, let me just say it that way, a non-Black individual. What you're saying is, if that recommendation comes from one Black family to another Black family, it may be easier received
Mhm.
because it kind of eliminates that. Are you saying that about my child
Mhm.
because they're not white?
Mm. Well,
So
think
there's almost
historically,
like a
there's like
defensiveness.
absolutely. I mean, historically, and it doesn't erase the rightness of it, or the in this space that historically, when you are in the world, experiencing the world as a person of color, as a Black person, it was shared with me, don't do A, B, or C in front of white folks. Don't air your business. Don't present yourself in a way, not there, not in front of them. And so it was a safety space. It was a historically a place of you have to be careful of what's said, what's done in spaces to protect yourself,
Mhm.
right? To show yourself as someone who doesn't get pointed out or doesn't get targeted, in a space. Something's wrong with your kid, coming from a space where it's already usually your kid is the only Black person in the classroom. That was my life growing up in the classroom, the only Black person in the classroom. That was my experience as a professional, as a school counselor, the only Black professional in the building. So it's like you have to navigate spaces in a way that you want to show yourself like, I'm okay. I don't need help, because I don't want that to come back and reflect on my family in a way that's going to cause them issues, problems, situations. And so receiving a call from a school counselor, oftentimes, you're able to sit in a space different from a dean, different from a principal. So when you come as a school counselor calling a family, if you are a white counselor, which predominantly most school counselors are white female, there are some what we consider in our studying when we become a school counselor. We do what's called an understanding of multicultural considerations. Like we actually have courses, classes where we speak to the fact that when you are speaking with the family that may come from a different cultural background, there are some considerations you should have. And that is as any professional in the school counseling world. So being able to take a lens to say, if I call this family and it is a Black family, a Puerto Rican family, an Asian American family, what are some considerations I should have when I have this conversation? And so that should be already embedded within the curriculum of becoming a professional school counselor. So I would hope that those counselors would lean into that, number one, but also an understanding just that it could be a barrier, it could be a block from the beginning, from the call, so even if you're doing your best to, I really want to help to support your student, but I feel like there might be some resistance in that. I think it is just an understanding to continue to persist in a way that's gentle, but also firm to say, this is coming from a place of we want the best for your student too. And we know you're doing the best for your student. Like always giving that parent the empowerment that they are the expert on their child, and we want to help to undergird or provide support in areas that might be a gap. And just being an education source for families, because it is difficult to have those conversations about someone's child, especially if there might be some stigma around mental health, what it means, what it is, what does that cause? Is that going to label my child? Are there going to be more barriers put on him in a society that's already kind of full of barriers? Then, yeah, a lot of families, Black families in particular, are going to push away from that. And so I think knowing that and just continuing to be persistent, continuing to lean into what those considerations are, to know that this might cause you to feel like, oh, they're not listening to me, but keep moving forward, keep providing support that you can. And then I think it's important, like this is statistics that you spoke to around Black psychiatrists and therapists. You can go to Psychology Today, which is an online platform, and you can actually search by Christian counselor, Black Christian counselor. You can filter your search to find someone that you think might be an entry point for you, that might be feel safe for you, feel safe for your family, feel like it's going to be maybe a good possible connection. It's not guaranteed, but it just provides that first sense of access. And I think that's the part where, when we think about the historical side of history and our current space right now, is providing access to an issue that's actually becoming worse related to mental health. Um, and it's done in a way that there are, like you said, polarizing impacts that impact Black communities, brown communities more so than other communities that might go into those with the belief that this is going to help and serve my family and what I need.
And I think one of the things that I heard you say, which was not a question that we had, but when you said it, it kind of smacked me in the face, which was, tell me again what you said. You have to take classes in multicultural. What did you say that was called?
Multicultural considerations.
Okay, so
yeah.
multicultural considerations, because I hear a lot of people say, I don't see color. And some people wear that as a badge of honor. I don't see color.
Mm.
What I hear when you say multicultural consideration is you better see color.
Please.
Absolutely, you
You
need
have
to see
to.
the color. It doesn't make you a bigot to see color. What it
No.
does is it helps you understand that the color you see has a story.
Right. It helps you understand. It helps you walk shoulder to shoulder with people. And it's like, I'm just being by your side as an ally to support. Not that I'm you, not that I can be in your shoes, but I can journey with you in a way that I have some understanding and be considerate of that. I don't think it's bigotry at all to see color. I think it should be considered as a way of just experiencing your world. It's a beautiful thing to be able to know you can be in conversation with people from all backgrounds, all situations, and know that there are differences that don't make things bad. And I think that's the part where, when you think of racism, there are these limits to say, you don't cross this line. You don't drink from here, that says your kind is not my kind, so we need to create separate boxes. Whereas consideration says, I want to consider everything in the box. I want to be able to be aware of who's here. And I think that's different than saying, I don't want you to be a part. I don't want to ensure you're helped and served because of this or that, related to color, related to my personal beliefs or thoughts around what you can and cannot do.
And I think in our world, I mean, you can speak to this if it. I'm sure it applies because of the uh, the cultural diversity that we have in the city that we live in. But I would say for the numbers, I couldn't even tell you what our percentage numbers at our church. My husband and I are senior pastors to a church. I consider, based on the demographic breakdown of our city, that we have a very diverse church. However, how we approach different topics with different families based on their cultural background is different. Same pastors, but we have to approach things different. And one of those things is mental health. If I go speak to a white family on mental health versus me speaking to a black family on mental health, there's going to be resistance right off the bat because of what you just said. Some cultures are like, we don't talk about it. So I think this, if you're in ministry, I would say hone into at least this point, and Brittany, you can add to that.
Yeah.
But when we talk about diversity and we're all God's children and we don't, everything is wonderful and great, but how you lead, the same way that you would lead based on familial personalities, also takes place in the mental health component of it. And so you mentioned earlier, a lot of people seek mental health support from inside the church. Now, I may be able to meet with someone and say, I'm going to go ahead and give you a referral out, and they will take it and run with it. They're awesome, right? But then there might be some families that if I say we're going to refer you out, they're like, yeah, well, this is as far as this is going. And that's the reality of it. And so that's why, at least for me, when I meet with people that are up and coming in ministry, I tell them, even if your denomination does not promote mental health, even if you didn't study that in school, you went to be a pastor, so you've got the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament down pat, you can quote scripture, I'm going to need you to get in the books of mental health and figure out what you're looking at. What does depression look like? Anxiety look like? What's PTSD? Be familiar with that, because at some point that's going to knock on your door. It's going to visit you, and you're going to have to speak to that. And do I believe the Bible is the infallible word of God? Absolutely. Do I think that the Holy Spirit can come in and bring enlightenment to those situations? Absolutely. But it does not take away from being informed. You are doing yourself a disservice and the people in your congregation a disservice when you don't go further and investigate. What do I need to know as a religious leader in my community, whatever denomination, it doesn't matter. Mental health has it doesn't have a list of people that it's like, I'm going to go after the Jewish community this week and then Catholics next week. It's just going to hit when it hits. So to me, knowing those two aspects of it, understand the cultures within your church body, and then understand mental health, because both of those things are going to meet at some point.
Yeah. And something that you had spoke about, it was kind of a ways back when you were talking about the school counselor aspect of things, but you said, to be gentle but firm, but then you said your focus is on the child. Your focus is on the person that needs help. And I think for so many of us in the mental health community, we sometimes forget that because, for me, not growing up in a very diverse community, there was not a lot of people of color, and I missed out on a lot of things because I didn't have that understanding. But when I got to that point, I did my due diligence because I realized I don't know anything about this group of people. I don't know how their culture works. I don't know, their backgrounds and their thought processes. And the fact that you said that, I think that speaks volumes, because even, in school counseling and mental health in churches, the focus is on the person that you're helping. And, if I have to realize that I have some biases and I have to deal with myself before I can help you, further yourself, we've got to get to a point where we're okay with that and we acknowledge that, because I want you to do better, whether I have to, grow in an area or say, hey, help me in this area. I think that's really important.
Isn't it just shocking when you think about, like, if I didn't understand math, I would go get a tutor, or I would suggest someone to go meet with your teacher to get a greater understanding of math, right? But it's almost as if there's a disconnect that mental health doesn't have a source of connection to being healed, as if I'm labeled to this. So I'll never escape it. So
Yeah.
it's like you at one point didn't know 1 + 1 was 1. And so at the same time, you may not have known, like, if I have anxiety, these are the symptoms that I have, but here are the interventions that I could
Mhm.
use for that. Like, there are 1 + 1 = 2 in mental health as well. And
Yeah.
I think sharing that with families, that just like you would go learn anything, learning about mental health, sharing with pastors, just like you would go learn anything. Go learn about mental health. Go learn about what it is, even at a basic level of being able to name something. That is a spiritual warfare tool, to be able to name that this is the issue and that this is the problem gives a specific target. And I
Mhm.
think knowing that in families, like, it's not a mystery that your child is going through this or going through that. There are techniques, there are strategies, there are supports that are available that are 1 + 1 = 2. And I think it's just taken away and demystifying a process that looks like this unknown. And I know, like we talked about before, that historically, especially in mental health, especially in healthcare, especially in a lot of systems, there has been violence perpetrated against people of color in the name of science, in the name of helping. But I also think if you find those through lines of true support with connected people, maybe through your pastor, maybe through a school counselor, you can find that 1 + 1 = 2 for your family and get the answers, get the support that you need, because it's not a never ending um, space that my child would always be like this, or myself, I will always have to deal with this. And then just stopping at the point of just the church. And I love my pastors, I always have, but it's just like, I know that they weren't mental health trained, but being able to trust them with maybe that next step, that's the part where I feel like we have to lean into too as a community. Like, we have to, number one, hopefully our pastors are getting the support, are making those networks and connections with people that they trust, so that then they can say the limits for myself are here. God can do continual in all things because he's also gifted this person to
Mhm.
Exactly.
do the
Yeah.
work. And so I think that's the part where people think that the gifts stop at the pastor, the gift stops at the school, but there are people beyond that are also equipped
Yeah.
to continue to work with
And I
your
think that's what I was thinking about when you were explaining that. When you read the beginning story in Genesis, and it talks about all these clans that were forming, and the Lord was releasing this group and this group and this tribe, and they were specialized.
Yeah,
Some people were blacksmiths, some people were musicians,
absolutely.
and so I do believe that we are given those gifts where when it comes time for them to come up and out of us,
Mhm.
we should be doing that. I
Yeah.
think it's a talent issue. You're given this many talents, we're going to be held accountable at it till the end. And
Mhm.
so for me, it was very freeing to be able to look at someone and say, I know who to call.
Mhm.
I will drive you there if I need to. I will sit in the waiting room with you if you need me to. But what we're dealing with here goes past what I can help you with. But I can continue to help you because it's a partnership. When
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
said that statement about the parent is the expert on the child,
Yeah.
that's so empowering because I'm not coming to take away your parenting. I'm coming
Mm-mm.
alongside you to help you. Well, we want for your child to cross that finish line.
Mhm. That
We
shoulder to
want,
shoulder
yeah, that
that you
shoulder to
said.
shoulder
Yeah.
was so powerful because it's not about me and it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do we come together to support them to be the best version of them
Right.
that God intended for them from the beginning?
From the
How do we
beginning.
do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you have any final thoughts? If you could leave people with one major thing at the end of this episode, what would it be?
Oh, I would say, number one, thank you both for this platform and knowing the world we live in, and oftentimes there are people with different thoughts around therapy and around mental health. But I would say continue to forge, through um, barriers that people create for themselves sometimes based off of history. based off of current circumstances, I would just say mental health is real.
Yeah.
I would say that understanding from a professional who has worked in schools for 20 years with our babies, with our students, that we do have a lot of work left to do to help dispel some of the error in thinking around in Black communities specifically, and probably other communities, but I just speak from my seat. But I also want to say that I also think there's hope in the space that I have seen a lot more people going into the field of counseling and mental health, and knowing that it is a space that has healing attached to it and not just a diagnosis that ends at that point. And so I would just say continue to continue to reach out to your pastors. Pastors keep getting the services and supports they need. School counselors continue to work within their scope of practice, but everyone work together. I loved how you said that, like it is a community coming together and being able to go out on the limb sometimes and say, I'll go with you. I'll
Yeah.
walk with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for your insight. You're valued, and I hope that you can be a Mrs. Bird. I think that's what you said that she was to those that you
That is
were
my
training, because we need that.
whole
Yeah.
dream.
We
Yes.
need that. Thank
Yes,
you so
thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you, ladies.